Let's see. All right, we are live. I'm going to give a few minutes for people to sign on if they are available. Check it out. It is Friday. It's 10 o'clock on the Roadway podcast page. If you are joining us either live or later, appreciate you guys stopping in. Give me a minute to get set up here. Get going. Okay, give me a thumbs up if the sound's good, if you guys can see and hear. I'm primarily going to start doing this on the Roadway podcast page, and I understand that there's going to be there's not going to be as many viewers because most people look for me on my personal page, but I just really want to get things moved over. And I know I can share this to a regular page while I'm doing it, so I'm going to try to do that real quick. Appreciate you guys joining in. We're going to get started here in a second. For some reason it's been acting weird, like only wanting to share it on pages I manage, not on my personal page. Doing the Monticello Coffee Company. See, it keeps telling me I can share it on a page I manage, but I just want to share it on my personal page. I don't know what's up with that. Hold on. Give me a second here. Share on your timeline. There we go. Justin, what's going on? Hey, Mike. How's Wyoming treating you, man? All right, cool. So I think I've shared it on my regular timeline, so we can get started. Hey, before I get started, I just want to say hi to my friends. Guys, I don't have sponsors, obviously. I'm just a little small-town dude. I'm a nobody with a little Facebook Live and YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. But I do have friends in town, and one of my favorites is Monticello Coffee Company. If you guys get a chance, make sure you support your local business. God knows they need it in what the fuck is going on right now. What's up, Justin? How's it going, buddy? They need it, okay? We have to support local businesses. It seems like this situation is stacked against them. So make sure you get by, say hi, and grab some coffee from Monticello Coffee Company. I'm doing a little Irish coffee myself. I'm not going to lie. All right, got a little espresso, a little Jameson, some creamer in there. So that's how I'm kicking it. Also, some other of my friends, and I can't wait for All Time Fitness to get open back up. I guess, according to the information they put out yesterday, we're looking at May 4th. So, May 4th, All Time Fitness should be open, so you guys can get your workout going on. Again, if you haven't been doing it, I know they've done a great job in working around it. They've had an outside gym setup and things like that. And good for them. I haven't been by that, but I'm looking forward to it opening up. So make sure you visit All Time Fitness, as well as Stealth Nutrition. Okay, Stealth Nutrition. Go see Season at Stealth. I know she's been bringing drinks. You can pre-order, online or by phone call, and she's even had the place set up outside some. So Stealth Nutrition will get you hooked up, get all your shake and your teas. All right, they're awesome. Should check them out. UFOs. I don't know how this is not dominating the news right now. And yes, before you say it, I realize that the videos came out a couple years ago. I saw them when they came out, guys. I know, okay? But for those who don't know, and even for those who are aware of the videos that came out, there is a little bit of difference about what's going on compared to what went on then. All right, so for those who are not familiar, I don't know how you could be with the UFO phenomenon. This has been going on for, since World War II. It's been going on longer than that, but in America, since World War II, right after, there have been pilots mainly, and this is what I'm going to focus on. I realize that there have been countless people out there who have seen UFOs, unidentified flying objects. I realize that there have been countless documentaries and movies and books and testimony. I don't even pretend to have any idea how many. But what I want to focus on is aviators, okay? The encounters between aviators and unknown flying objects, okay? This is something that has been extremely credible, okay? I mean, these guys are highly trained. They are problem solvers. They document things by nature. And this is where they live. And especially when you get into the realm of commercial and military pilots. What's up, guys? Appreciate Josh. How's it going, buddy? This is something that is very relevant. And in the past, you know, UFOs, it's been kind of a, either you believed in them, you know, or you didn't. And if you did, the people that didn't kind of considered you a wacko. And if you did believe in them, you kind of considered the people who didn't, you know, narrow-minded. But most of the problem with, I think, people taking the UFO phenomenon seriously has been a lot of the cases that have been brought to the media, okay? Some of the testimonies, some of the, you know, the weird shows. I remember Unsolved Mysteries when I was a kid, and they had a lot of these stories that people kind of made fun of. You know, the tabloids, you know, you go to the grocery store and you see this stuff. So yeah, I would say the majority of the UFO stories that I have seen have been, you know, crap. But when you get into the realm of military and commercial aviators encountering things, then it takes a whole new, you know, it's a whole new perspective. Or it's a different perspective. So a few years ago, there was two separate incidents, and I'll go and link these things in the comments here in a little bit. But there were two separate incidents that are on video. Now, if you go on and you YouTube these things or you watch them in the news, you're going to see what's called a HUD. Okay, a HUD is in fighter jets. All right, you have a heads-up display. That's what it is. It's a heads-up display. There's basically, if there's any pilots out there, I'm military, but I you know, I don't have much experience with planes except for talking to them. But if there's any pilots out there, especially in, you know, the fighter plane area or field, feel free to correct me. But you have different types of ways to get your information when you're flying a plane. When you're flying a plane and you're doing it for combat purposes, it's just like everything else. It's very important that all the information is right here and it's easy to see and to hear, and you have all the information coming at you very rapidly, because that's the way the situation is going to unfold. So you have what's called a HUD, or a heads-up display, and what that is essentially what you've seen on the movies or whatever. It's going to be some version of targeting system where you can see, you know, without trying to sound stupid about it, you know, your crosshairs, your locking systems, all your flight information or whatever. It's going to be right there in front of the pilot. Another way to do it is going to be, you know, some of them have the advanced helmet systems to where all the information is displayed on their visor and things like that. So that's what you're looking at. When you're looking at these videos on YouTube, you're looking at these videos in the news. This was on CNN, Fox. This is mainstream stuff, guys. What you're seeing is the heads-up display inside of the actual plane. Now, there is volume, there is audio to this. You can hear the pilots talking, discussing this. And if you're watching it, it's very important that you hear what they're saying, because that tells, you know, a lot about the situation. But a few years ago, you had a couple different incidents. One was on the East Coast, I believe. One was on the West Coast. I know one was off the West Coast. The other one was off the East Coast. And these pilots, in the situation on the West Coast, they were conducting a military exercise. All right? And without me going into giant naval and, you know, explaining what military, all this stuff is, but if you don't know that, the best way I can explain it to you is a giant war game. All right, we're testing our abilities to operate as a giant battle group, which includes, you know, in the big picture, it includes your naval sea power, how your naval projects air power, which is your aircraft that are on aircraft carriers, your Top Gun stuff, where we're talking your F-18s, your fighter jets, your bombers, whatever. And then also in the bigger picture, you're going to have what we call Marine Air Ground Task Force, which is going to be your marine elements and even, you know, your combat elements. Everything's going to be involved in that. Now, in this situation, I'm not sure all those parts were involved, but a lot of it was. And what they were doing is they were essentially running war games, where they would cruise out to sea, and the pilots would have aggressors. They would have, and in this case, it was Marine pilots were the bad guys. The naval pilots would have Marine pilots come into their airspace, and they would have to intercept them and deal with them, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, while one of these drills was occurring, the flight commander, the fighter jet commander, they were retasked, okay, and they were tasked for, quote, real world ops. What that means is they were being sent from a training mission to something to intercept something real. Now, I don't know whether or not they 100% believe that this was a real incident or if this was part of the training thing, but I suspect that they knew the difference, because there's so much involved in training, guys. You know, it's really difficult to pull a fast one over. It would be equivalent to infantry in the Army or Marines if we were out patrolling and doing a training exercise and we had blank ammunition, you know, and our simunition, you know, the paint rounds or whatever, and them saying, hey, listen, you know, we're going to send you on a real world op. You would know the difference, because obviously if you were able, if you went to the real world op, then you're going to completely change everything. You're going to go back in, you're going to re-equip, and you're going to roll out. Well, in this situation, there was no re-equipping. They were already in the air, and they were actually sending them to a different location while they were in flight. And that meant they had no weapons, okay, because these guys don't fly around in training evolutions with, you know, real ammunition and bombs and all that, because, well, bad things can happen when you do that. People make mistakes, all right? So they were retasked with intercepting something. And the object that they were sent out to intercept, to find, had been, I guess you could say, plaguing this battle group for a while. So these other ships, they had been tracking, the radar guys had been tracking this thing for days. It had been popping up and just doing erratic behavior, stuff that, in their own words, is simply not possible. Now, what am I talking about when I say something's not possible in the air? I'm talking about coming to complete stops from high speeds, accelerating to high speeds from complete stops instantaneously within seconds. I'm talking about moving in right angles, okay? Absolutely there's no turn, there's no anything. We're talking about aircraft that can just do whatever they want as if the laws of physics do not apply, all right? So we're not talking about a normal type of propellant, or a normal type of, propulsion. All right, we're not talking about jet engines. We're not talking about propellers. We're talking about something that doesn't seem to require the typical way an engine works, which is I'm going to take something and put something out. This seems like it's just pushing gravity away as it moves. So these things were just moving around as they wanted to move, okay? Really, really weird stuff. When the pilots went that direction, they got in within range, and I'm not going to try to tell their story. I'll put a link on there, and you can hear the commander himself tell the story. He's on Joe Rogan, he's on CNN, he's on Fox. A couple years ago when this thing came out, he was everywhere, all right? So this is something that's been out there in the media for a while. And I kept track of it. I watched the original interviews, but at that time, it was leaked stuff. And the Navy, I think the Navy basically said, yeah, this is real, but it wasn't going to release the entire footage. And the reason why they wouldn't release the entire footage is because there's a lot of this stuff that's classified. The equipment they're using, for some of the measurements and readouts that you might see, some of the stuff they have to scrub this stuff and make sure there's nothing classified that's going to be leaked or that's going to be out there when this information or when this video is freed up. And that's what they had to do. And then the Pentagon ultimately has to approve it. Same way if you wrote a book. If you're military, you had to write a book. You're going to send it up, and they're going to make sure you're not releasing any stuff that's classified or sensitive information. They're going to redact it with a bunch of black lines or tell you, you got to change this. Just like essentially edit the thing. So where was it? Okay. So the pilots, they intercept this thing, all right? And as they come onto it, as they tell the story, they're above it, and he looks down, and he describes something that he describes as shaped like a Tic Tac, okay? Just like a capsule. A Tic Tac, or, maybe a Tylenol or something. And it's just hovering above the water. It's just sitting there. Some things he noticed was that there wasn't any type of effect on the water from this craft being above it. If you military, or if you've been involved in aircraft, especially you're talking about rotary wing, you're talking about helicopters or anything for that matter. Anytime you have a propulsion or blades or whatever, they're pushing wind, you're going to have some type of effect on the water. You're going to have ripples, you're going to waves, whatever. And this thing seemed to be hovering above the water, and there was no effect to the water surface from it being there. It was just kind of moving back and forth. And I think at some point it came up in the air, and it rose up some, and he decides that he's going to go take a look at it. As he gets close to it, and he starts circling above it, it comes up and it's circling with him. Okay, it's circling with him, basically orbiting each other. Now that's weird, guys, because this is documented case of a pilot interacting with something. It's not a natural phenomenon. This thing is moving. It's reacting to what the pilot is doing. So as he describes it, he tells the other pilot in the other craft that he's going to go ahead and cut across the circle, so this thing's basically moving in a circle, and I'll just do it this way so you kind of see it. He decides he's going to, instead of keep orbiting, he's going to cut across. All right, so as he's doing this, he decides he's going to cut across and go down straight to it. And he does that, and I think some other stuff happened, but basically the aircraft or whatever it was took off, and he said, I don't know how fast it was going, but it disappeared into a giant sky within seconds. So that is one of the situations that they're talking about, one of the videos that was released. All right, now, this aircraft, this video was released. This commander, this naval aviator, he went around, he talked about it. He's retired. This guy is one of our best pilots, or he was at that time. I don't know what he's doing now, but he was, you guys know the movie Top Gun's coming out. He was a Top Gun graduate. So, I mean, he wasn't just a pilot, he was the commander, of that group of planes. And this isn't just him telling his story. This is his heads-up display. It was recorded. The radar, all the guys on the ships, they have all this stuff. Everything was documented. It happened. It was recorded both from the ships, from the planes, not just one plane, but two planes. So the fact of the matter is that this aircraft was essentially in aerial maneuvers against another aircraft that the Pentagon has just confirmed. We don't have that technology. Okay, we do not have the ability to do those things. That's not within the U.S. arsenal, and those maneuvers that we know of are not within any arsenal. So the question is okay. So there's only two possibilities when you have something like this. There's only two possibilities that I see. Number one is that the Pentagon is lying, and that it is something that we are capable of. And without getting into the science of it, and I want to talk about that for a second again, this is something that we are not capable of. Or it's not from here. Okay? That's the only two possibilities. Either this is something that we can do, and it's highly secret, and what's up, Neil? What's up, cousin? All right, my cousin just dropped in, man. What's going on? Hadn't seen him in forever, dude. Glad you're here, dude. We need to catch up. So the technology we don't have, at least openly. Now, I was in the military. Other people have been in the military. Know this. We don't have craft out there. Helicopters. We have jets that can take off vertically. We have Ospreys. We have helicopters. We have stealth helicopters, or at least we had them. In 2012, they used them for the Bin Laden raid. We have technology, the F-22s, the F-35s. These are highly advanced aircraft, and none of them, not one of them, $700 million aircraft? I think I saw a show the other day that said the F-22, considering maintenance costs and everything, each aircraft will end up being a $700 million plane. With all the technology that's on these planes, we do not have anything that can make right angle turns, that can accelerate from nothing to speeds that would make them disappear in the sky within a matter of seconds. We do not have technology that can stop on a dime, that can operate above, hover above something without leaving any effect of it. We don't have that type of stuff, or at least we don't have it openly. So possibility one is that they're telling the truth. It's just not from here. We don't know where it comes from, but it's not from here. Look, guys, I have grown up, the UFO thing is something that I frankly believed my entire life. And it was real simple to me. I'd never seen a UFO. I don't have any experience with it. I don't know that I know of any, maybe a couple people that have seen strange things. But personally, I have no experience with it. But just like we talked about here before, if you just do the math, when we have billions of galaxies, or, within our universe, trillions of galaxies within our universe, and with our own galaxy, within our own galaxy, we have trillions of stars, and countless have planets like ours. The math, the idea that we hit the ultimate jackpot of quadrillions of planets and stars in the entire known universe, that somehow we managed to be the only one that could produce intelligent life. I can't win a scratch-off ticket at Easy Mart, okay? I can't win a sweepstake. I can't win anything, but you expect me to believe that not only are we the only planet within trillions of galaxies and stars and other planets to have life, but I managed to be at the top of the food chain on one. It doesn't add up for me, so I don't buy it. But the common sense would say, of course we're not alone. And I think that one day, and possibly even soon, that it will be as absurd to imagine that we're the only ones in the entire universe as we think it would have been for anyone to think that the world was flat, or for anyone to think that we were the only ones, that the Europeans were the only ones on the planet, or that there was no. I think it's just common sense, and it'll seem obvious in the end. But the other theory, which is even more interesting to me, and it's kind of still on the same level, and that is this technology that does exist. Where it comes from, we don't know. But there's an interesting interview. Rogan had this guy on, and I've known about him. I remember watching a television show like from the 80s when he was talking. And his name is Bob Lazar. He claims to have worked in a special section called S4 of Area 51. You guys remember Area 51, right? Area 51 was what the Facebook group, the joke that they were going to storm it and they can't stop us all. Okay, so Area 51, Groom Lake, is a testing facility, all right, for aircraft. If you don't know anything about this, it's out in the middle of the desert. It's a testing facility. You can look it up, get the information. I actually knew someone that worked at Area 51. He was in the Air Force, and he was part of a special security team. He was Special Operations Air Force. I don't know. But anyway, I worked with him. He had worked on Area 51. He didn't have any stories. He didn't tell me anything. It's super classified. But essentially, the information, what we gathered was that his experience primarily dealt with drone aircraft. No aliens that he saw. But Area 51's been around for a while. And it was, if you remember the stealth bomber, the stealth fighter, the B-2, the big Batwing looking the stealth fighter, which was the really weird right angles, kind of a bat looking aircraft. The B-2 is the bat looking one. This was, I don't know, you have to look it up. Look at the F-117. We don't fly it anymore. I don't remember it may have flown the last time in 2003 or even before. I don't know. But these were both developed at Area 51. So, and there's obviously other aircraft that are there that are classified. So a lot of the UFO sightings that you're going to see around that area are going to be from just man-made tested aircraft. Now, this guy, Bob Lazar, you should, and I'll post a link. You can look him up. It's really interesting stuff. When he came out in the 80s, he claimed to have worked at Area 51. Actually, he claimed to have worked at a location separate from the main place, which is called S4. He is a propulsion guy. He claimed to, I think, graduated from MIT or somewhere, and mysteriously there was no evidence of it, but he also claimed to work there, and they said he was lying, that he had made all this stuff up, but then since then it's been proven that he did work there. He's on the employment rosters. This guy has been saying he did all this stuff for 30 years, and everyone said he lied, and then all of a sudden, in the last few years, stuff's been coming out proving that he was telling the truth about a lot of things, and the other things we may never know. So he claims he was recruited to work there at S4 because they were at a stopping point. They were bringing in scientists, and they were trying to reverse engineer an engine, okay, or a propulsion system that they didn't understand. He was brought in. He was introduced to it. It was kind of a need to know stuff. He didn't know they didn't tell him everything about it. Just that they had discovered it, or they'd found it a long time ago. I don't even know if they told him that. He may have found it out. But what they did was, they wanted him to come in, look at this thing, try to figure out how it worked, and reverse engineer it. The way he explained it simply was that the propulsion system was based off of a foreign element that they called element 115. At this time, this stuff didn't exist. People said he's full of shit. There's no such thing as element 115. What he claimed element 115 was an extremely dense matter. So if you're familiar with Einstein's, I guess you could say, beliefs about gravity, what he's saying is that gravity is all around us, and the more dense something is, the more it affects gravity. And the best way to explain that would be if you took a sheet. If you took maybe a trampoline or something, and you took a bowling ball and you laid it on top of it, and then it would warp, everything would kind of be pulled toward it. So if you want a simple explanation of what a black hole is, it would be something so dense and heavy that it would pull it down and create a hole that would be so steep that once you crossed a certain line, you could no longer get back out because of how dense and how heavy this ball was. So that would be, in a layman's terms, maybe not the most accurate, but kind of an easy way to explain a black hole, and also to kind of talk about how Einstein was trying to explain gravity. So again, gravity would be, the denser something is, the heavier it is, because the denser it is, the more it affects gravity, the thread of gravity around us. So if gravity was a trampoline or a sheet and you put a dense ball on it, it's going to warp things down and pull it. And that is how he explained it. So what Bob Lazar was saying was that this element 115 was so dense that it would, or its properties would affect gravity so much that you could essentially manipulate gravity around the vehicle. Now this was in the 80s, guys, and I want you to listen to what he says and then go and watch what these pilots are claiming this aircraft is doing. Because it's not being pushed like normal, okay? In order for you to move 90 degrees, all right, just right angles, in order for you to stop with no slowdown and accelerate with no speed up and to hover above something like water with no effect on the water, then you have to actually be avoiding all of the laws of physics or all the properties. And the only way you can do that is if you push it all out of the way. So what he was claiming was that this element that ran this propulsion system essentially made a bubble around it. And gravity, the laws of nature, nothing, it was just like a giant force field around it to where it could just maneuver. Which meant, if you think about it, if I'm traveling 1,000 miles an hour, or however fast this thing can go, I don't need a seatbelt. I don't need restraints. I can walk around normally because nothing is going to have an effect on me. So that explains exactly how this thing was acting. And this was 30 years ago, and this video was taken in, I think it was 2005. I'm not mistaken. It was 2005, I believe. It's old video, but it was released around, I don't know, 2017. So Bob Lazar said this is what it did. Now, at some point, he claims to be shown an aircraft that was operational. Okay? They didn't build it. They didn't repair it. It was just allegedly found that way. And that they had figured out enough about it to make it fly, to do certain things. And this is how he got fired. He said that on certain nights, I believe it was Thursday nights, they would fly this thing. And at this time, you could get closer to Area 51, especially to this S4 area, than you can now. Since then, the government has pushed the property lines all the way out to where you can't get there. And a lot of that's common sense. We've got better technology now. Telescopic lenses, our cameras are better. We have drones. I mean, there's all kind of stuff that you have to push. They're testing top secret aircraft out there. You've got to push people back. Lazar claimed that he took a friend up there. I believe the friend confirmed this. That he took a friend up there and let them watch, on a couple different accounts, let them watch this aircraft take off and do these type of maneuvers. The same type of maneuvers that are recorded on this air. Jason, I got both my cousins on here. Guys, I've got to break the story for a second. I got twin cousins. We were raised together. Man, I hadn't seen them forever. Thanks, guys. Man, I miss you dudes. We got to catch up. We got to catch up soon. So thanks for stopping in. Jason says, I love the content. Well, dude, feel free to comment. Guys, whenever I do these things, drop links, comment. We can go back and forth on this. I read these comments as they're coming up. All right, so getting back to what I was saying. So Bob Lazar says he took a friend to an area of the desert where you could see this aircraft take off. Now, again, this is the same thing that these pilots have recorded on their heads-up display. The same type of maneuvers that are recorded by the radar operators. I mean, this stuff is absolutely real. It's factual. If you don't believe it after the Pentagon has flat out said, you know what, it's real. Okay? It is what it is. It's real. The pilots have seen it. It's recorded. You can see it with your own eyes. It's not a secret anymore. It's not crazy wacko stuff anymore. It is just common knowledge now. We don't know where it comes from, but we do know it's there and it exists. So he did this. He got caught. I think he was arrested and he was fired. Here's the kicker. Rumor is that he stole some of this element 115. That he stole it. He left with it. Whether he did or not, he won't admit. But he does say that, and this has happened, that he's got a little lab where he lives. It's been raided by the feds countless times for just random stuff. And he says that whatever their overt reasons are, their claims are, they're really looking for this element that they believe that he took. And he doesn't say whether he took it or not. Now, fast forward it to now. Okay, a few years ago, we built something, not the first one, we built something called, I say we, like I was part of it, called the Large Hadron Collider. I don't think I said that right, okay? But this thing shoots atoms around or something, like just below the speed of light and collides them. And the point of it is to understand the universe. All right? This thing wasn't built because we understand the universe. This thing was built because we know we don't understand the universe. This thing was built because scientists are now admitting that there's probably other parallel levels of existence, universes, dimensions. We're trying to understand those. We're trying to understand reality as the way you could explain it with Einstein's theories. Okay, there is a lot of weird stuff about this world, and we don't understand it. So they're trying to do this. Some scientists believe that they can even create black holes. They don't have enough energy to do it, but they can create mini black holes in Sweden at this giant experimental machine. And like I said, what this thing does, it sends atoms around in a circle and it collides them, and when they explode, We just learn all kind of stuff. I don't know, just crazy stuff. So since then, they have discovered an element, as I understand it, and this is Rogan and him were talking about it, and it's called, guess what, element 115. They've called it that. I don't know if that's on purpose or what, but it is essentially a synthetic version of what he said was natural, and they haven't made it work quite right. They can't get it to work, but they have proven it exists. I don't know if they have it, but they've proven it exists, or they've made a version of it, a synthetic version, something. But it turns out that this element that they said was complete crap and was, there's no way, that now there is a way, and that it does exist. So the idea is that he has the version of it, and that they're raiding him to get it back because there's only so much. And he did say that there's only so much of it. It's not something that they can produce more of. I don't know if they still have any. I don't know if they used it all. I don't know how that works. But the point of this whole thing is that we are living in some weird times, man. Okay? UFOs are freaking real. And now we just have to figure out where do they come from. So his claim on the origin of these things was that they told him, you have to understand, the way he talks about this is very consistent with what anybody would tell you if they work in any type of special projects, any type of classified stuff. Stuff's going to be compartmentalized. You're not going to be told everything about what you're doing. You're only going to be told what you need to be told to do what you need done. Now, this was really hard for him because if he's trying to reverse engineer something and he's not really told everything about it, and he explains this stuff was really dangerous. He even says there was someone killed working on this stuff. It makes it hard for him to do his job. And the fact it was so compartmentalized, this is not how science works, okay? Science works by these people over here studying something and doing experiments, and these people over here studying something and doing experiments, and they publish their findings, and they publish their findings, and they go against them, and they try to... And this whole community of information sharing and experiments is how science works. So when you have something so secret that you can't tell anybody you have it, and you have to bring in people to try to figure it out, but they're not allowed to talk about it or share that information with other scientists, then it creates a problem, and you're not going to move very fast, which would explain why nothing's ever happened. Why he says that he really doesn't feel it ever really made much progress as far as them developing something. But then, in 2005, between 2005 and 2020, all of a sudden, we have these mysterious aircraft popping up that act very much like what he described he witnessed and worked on. So it raises the question, not if these things are real, we know that they are, but is it possible that the programs that he worked on were successful? That they figured it out. That now we have some type of maybe drone, some type of aircraft that runs off of this element 115 that possibly was produced in something like the Large Hadron Collider. And, I mean, once we have the propulsion system, we have the aircraft. Because remember, essentially... When I was a kid, there was a movie called Explorers. It was a stupid kid movie, in a time when you had like all these movies like Stand By Me and all these movies. Everything was about kids, right? E.T., all this stuff. Well, there was this dumb movie called Explorers, and what it was about is these kids discover aliens or whatever, but they have a system that puts a bubble around something, and they can fly inside of that bubble. And there's nothing, and so they use a carnival ride. And they put this bubble around it, and then they maneuver all over the place. And the ship was not very advanced, but it didn't matter because of the bubble, right? That's what was advanced. That's what was doing everything. Well, this is basically the same idea. It doesn't really matter what the tic-tac is. It only matters what propels it. So is it possible that this is man-made, that this is something the Pentagon has, this has been testing for years over the desert, and this is what people are seeing? I think that's highly likely. If I had to place my bet on if this was an actual alien that these guys intercepted, or if this was something that we made work over the last 40, 50 years, I would go with the latter. However, that doesn't mean that this came from us. That doesn't mean the technology originated with us. And he didn't know where the technology originated from, I don't think. I think he was told that one of the aircraft was found in an archaeological dig. All right, so basically the idea was that it didn't originate on Earth. What do you guys think about that? Let's see here. So let me check out some of these comments. Like I said, my cousins said hi. Let me refresh this. All right. I can read it on two screens, but it's easier if I can. Let me see here. I'm going to kind of move this over. All right, it would make sense. Area 51 would know not to push the boundaries too much on intercepting F-18s or an aircraft carrier while they fly this drone. Aliens wouldn't know those boundaries. Now, Justin, that's a good point, because I wanted to bring that up. I believe in both situations, this was a training exercise. Now, that's important, as Justin points out. That's important because, guess what? When planes fly in training exercises, I said before, they don't have any munitions on them. There are no missiles. There are no guns, or there's no ammunition to prevent accidental discharges, to prevent, or negligent discharges. Basically prevent a pilot from, going Fox 1 on something that turns out to be friendly. If we had these things, if they were ours, and we were flying it around and we were testing it, we would want to test it around the most elite aircraft and the best pilots in the world, right? Which is ours. At the same time, even though these devices were way superior in every way to our aircraft, anybody can get lucky. A shot can hit accidentally, whatever. You wouldn't want to risk these things getting shot down. Okay? So if that's the case, then you would definitely want to test these things out in a training environment where that planes would be dispatched against these things, but these planes would not be armed. So that would make sense. And that's why I lean toward it was a drone. Now, if it was ETs, if it was extraterrestrials or some type of something from that's not from our world or not from our universe or dimension or whatever, they may not know these boundaries. So Joe Rogan said something yesterday that was kind of interesting, or a couple of days ago. He said, if they came here, how often would they come here? Probably not that often. Okay, it would probably be pretty rare. If you think about how often we send people to the Congo or to under the sea, deep to. I mean, we don't do it a lot. Okay, it's kind of a rare thing. It's a big deal. So if they travel here from billions of light years away or whatever, it's probably, even though time may be different, it's probably not, like an everyday thing. But then my cousin brings up a point. He says, I think it's interdimensional. That's a funny word, but it's not. Because a few years ago, that would have sounded crazy. But interdimensional now is not a funny word. It's a very serious word. This is what scientists are studying. This is what they're working on at these places. Is it possible that there are different planes of existence, different frequencies? And that these things exist, essentially, right beside us. And we just, and then they just cross over. Who knows? A lot of questions can come up when you admit that these things are real. And that has already been done. So we have to start there. We know what they are. We know that they are there. What are they? I don't know. I tend to believe that it's a little bit of, maybe it's everything. Maybe they are from far away and different. Who knows? And that somehow they've crashed on Earth, or we've got the technology and we have reverse engineered it, and maybe that's what we're looking at. I do think it's pretty convenient that these things tend to pop up. Both instances were on the East and West Coast and tended to pop up on training missions. All right, so no one shot at them. But I don't know. I don't know how many cases there have been, with UFOs and pilots to where they have been shot at. I'd have to look it up. If you know, or you want to research it, drop a link. All right, so I spent the first 45 minutes talking about that. Now I want to transition into the coronavirus. I know you're sick of hearing about it, but I thought about something yesterday, and I'm probably sounding like Captain Obvious on this, or at least it seems I am. But there's two sides to this thing. There are those that say that this thing is the worst, that could be the worst thing ever, and that everything we're doing is appropriate, and that it's saving lives, and that it's what needed to be done, yada yada. And you got the other side that's like, screw this, we're destroying our economy, we're destroying our immune systems. This is nothing. This is not any more dangerous than the flu. It's less deadly than a flu, and the flu has vaccines, yada yada yada. And so there's these two sides to this. And I keep asking myself, why are we treating this so different? And this is what everyone's asking. We haven't seen anything that has come out that has made this virus seem like it's really... I joke around about the apocalypse all the time. But really, there's been nothing that's come out that made this virus seem like it's anything more deadly than other stuff, okay? Or at least not exceedingly different. And what I mean by that is let's just pretend it is more deadly, or let's just say it is more deadly than flu. Whatever. If that's the number, if that's what you think, or if that's what you believe, or if that's the case, then okay. But it's definitely not like extremely different. Okay? H1N1, everything else. I mean, the fact of the matter is we're treating this way different than we've ever treated anything else. And we can't do this every time. You can't stop an economy every time something deadly comes out. You can't stop an economy and send people home. And, everyone is assuming that this is done on purpose to destroy businesses and to send us into their homes. I don't know. I can't for the life of me understand why anyone would want to wreck an economy it's a self-pushing economy. Okay? This economy, I mean, you make money off people. It's self-moving. The government doesn't really want control over everything because that means they have to do it. They want something that works on its own. It's easier for them to collect the tax revenue from the people, from the businesses, and continue on. It doesn't make sense to want to shut that down. I don't think it makes sense. So I don't buy into the idea that the government is trying to, that this thing is all fake and that the government is trying to destroy our lives. I just don't buy it because it just doesn't make sense. Why would you, if you have, if I'm in the mafia and I am a crime boss and I have 10 people working under me and they have all these little racketeering businesses and they are essentially running their own businesses, all I'm doing is collecting money at the top, basically taxes. Why would I want to shut that down? So that I can personally go run every one of their businesses by myself. That's a pain in the ass. It's ineffective. It's going to cost me money. It doesn't make any sense. I don't believe that the government wanted to shut anything down. So why did we? Well, because we were afraid of it. So my next question is, why are we so much afraid of it than every other thing that's come out in the last one? Swine flu, bird flu, H1N1, whatever. Why are we so much more afraid of it than everything else? If we keep saying that the evidence shows it's just the freaking corona bat virus. I mean, it's just that. That's all it is. So here's my idea. Okay? Here's my idea. Yesterday, I watched a press conference with the president, and he was asked specifically if we had sufficient evidence to lead him to believe, to lead the intelligence communities. That's who we're talking about. We're talking about CIA. We're talking about people that investigate this stuff. To believe that this thing didn't just come from a bat in the market, that it actually did come out of this laboratory in Wuhan, China. All right, that's not a conspiracy, guys. That's just common sense. This laboratory studies coronavirus. That's admittedly what it does. The idea that it didn't come from there is a little ridiculous unless someone wanted to frame the lab. Okay? So here's my point. And just follow me on this. Okay? Viruses are only in labs for two reasons. Okay, they're only in labs for two reasons. And anyone in the medical and biology, I mean, if you're into this stuff and I'm wrong, please correct me. But from my viewpoint, there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of things that are done, there's a lot of research that's done, but essentially there's two basic reasons to study viruses. Number one is to help people, and number two is to hurt people. That's it. They're either used for medicine or they're used for weapons. That is all. You have biological warfare and then you have medicine, right? So if you're studying a virus in a lab, and we do know for a fact that the coronavirus was being studied in this lab in Wuhan, China. We know that. That's a fact. Okay? Then it was only being studied or messed with to either help people or to hurt people or both. Okay? Depending what the lab's full spectrum, whatever its abilities are and its mission and all that. So, let's just assume for a second that, or let me rephrase that. It doesn't matter whether or not this thing came out of the lab or it just randomly come from this freaking bat. If it came out of Wuhan, China, and there's a lab there in Wuhan, China that studies coronavirus, and the only two purposes of viruses in the lab is to help people or hurt people. And China is, in fact, our biggest rival on the geopolitical map right now. It's our enemy. When this thing comes out, we have to assume the worst. What is the worst? If I were trying to develop a biological weapon, a virus, the most effective would be a Trojan horse, would be one that is nothing, and it spreads, and then it is essentially like a sleeper cell or sleeper virus. It mutates or it changes or it activates and a bunch of bad shit happens. Kills everybody that I wanted to kill. And then it just dies. Okay? It doesn't last long. And then I have an effect and it's gone. Now, I don't know that anything like that exists, but I'm just saying that would be the ideal version. If I wanted to create something, a massive viral weapon, that would be what it did. Okay? It would be one that could be carried without much harm, but something would cause it to activate, start killing a bunch of people really rapidly, doing some really bad stuff, and then at some point would just die. Okay? Vaccinated out, whatever. It would just maybe even just turn off and just die. Now, I realize that sounds crazy, but, a couple years ago, so did pilots intercepting UFOs. But I don't think anyone will argue that is the perfect biological weapon. And that is what we work towards. So, I'm not saying that's what this is. Let me make it clear. I don't believe nor disbelieve that this is anything specific or special. I don't believe or disbelieve that this came from the laboratory. I'm just throwing out an idea here. The virus came out of Wuhan, China. This is our enemy. There's a lab there that works on this type of stuff. We don't know if it's a weaponized, if it's a lab that creates weapons or a lab that just creates medicine or does both. When this virus hits the world, we have to treat it, worst case scenario, like it possibly is a weapon. Okay? We have to treat it like that. Because if we don't, and it starts acting crazy, then we're behind the power curve. I'm not arguing whether these measures are justified or not. I'm not talking about religious freedoms and all that in this episode, okay? I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't. I'm saying that it makes sense that that's how if you look at it from that perspective, this all makes sense. They've studied this thing, and we keep getting assured that it's nothing more than just a regular coronavirus. And that's probably true. However, after a certain amount of time, after so many studies, after it keeps proven over and over that that's the case, then these measures, this protocols, this extreme thing that we've done starts subsiding, and people say, okay, this was just a freak virus that got out because somebody didn't adhere to proper lab protocols. It got to the market, and there was no malicious intent. There was nothing. It just happened. But until that happens, then, maybe the world was afraid that it was more than that. And we have to prove that it isn't before it is. If that makes sense. So, let's see here. Let me see if I can get I don't know why I can't read my comments. They don't show up on... Hold on one second. You guys got comments? I'm about to start reading a few. I hate to go up to the screen and read them because... Okay, so Justin says, I don't believe the government was responsible for the virus. The government was profoundly ill-prepared for these events. So we just did the very obvious thing we could do to prevent spread. I agree with that, Justin. I think that, but I think we were afraid that it was way more than it was. And it's more likely that they were studying this damn virus and used many different animals. One of the animals could have been a bat and it got loose and they didn't report it. They think to themselves, well, no one will eat it or mess with it for weeks. And that's if the virus was the one that carried it out of there. I think the version that they're investigating is that a person got infected with this in the lab and then just carried on with everyday life, and that's how it started spreading. But either way, I agree with you, dude. I mean, I think it's probably the case. I don't think the government wants it to be anything else. But because it came out of this lab, if it came out of this lab, we have to treat it as if it possibly was weaponized. Until we know 100% that it's not going to be a Trojan horse and just start people are going to start randomly turning into zombies, or whatever. I don't know. But I'm just saying... Does that make sense? I mean, wouldn't that make sense? I hope it does, because we can't do this every time a new virus comes on the scene. We can't do this because we get every couple of years, something, maybe not new, but something hits it. Who else? Other comments, man. You guys ring in on this. This is going back through some other ones. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss anything, so I may be jumping around on subjects. I said earlier, my cousin said, talking about the UFO thing, says interdimensional. I think there's a lot to that, and that's a super interesting thing to me. I want to start getting into that aspect as far as interdimensional possibilities of these contacts. But going back to Justin responding to what I just said, he says, absolutely. Yeah, so I think that that's probably what we're dealing with. Look, the intelligence agencies were probably found out about this. Look, China didn't want to tell... First of all, let's just get real, okay? Whenever we're making, theories, we always assume everyone's on the same page. Any of my friends that work in government, or it doesn't even say government, corporate, world, whatever, everyone knows that there is no they, okay? We always say they want to do this. Well, there is no they, okay? Nobody in corporate organizations and in government talk to each other. I mean, the information is not it's not that effective. So if this lab let this thing out, they probably didn't even realize it until it was too late. And you can't expect the government of China, I'm not defending the government of China. Please don't start saying, well, Casey's a communist China sympathizer. No, fuck them. But I'm being real here. Do you really think that the Chinese government knew that this thing had gotten out? Probably not originally. And I'm sure the lab wasn't in a hurry to go tell the Chinese government that they had fucked up and let what possibly could have been an experimental version or anything of a virus. Look, they don't want to tell their bosses they did it, and the chances are they didn't. So when we start saying, well, the Chinese hid it from us, of course they hid it from us. Of course, they hid it from themselves. They hid it from everyone. And they didn't want to admit it until it was too late and they had to act. Even they don't want to shut down their economy. Okay, China has a huge economy. They didn't want to shut it down. The United States didn't want to shut its economy down. Are you kidding me? Look how much money the government is losing and now paying out because it shut the economy down. Now it's paying people instead of getting money from them. So this isn't something anybody wanted to happen. This is something that we were scared of. And we probably went to the most extreme protocol because we were afraid it was going to be worse than it is. Okay? Justin says, tensions have been high between China, North Korea, and Russia. So when the virus pops up out of any of these countries, you have to treat it as a threat. That's exactly what I'm talking about, dude. Thanks for understanding my point. I'm not saying it is a threat. I'm not saying it's a weapon. I'm not saying that it was being developed as a weapon. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying that viruses in labs are either being studied or manipulated to help people or to hurt people. You have to assume when it comes out of an enemy nation, all right? This isn't against Chinese people. Casey's racist against... No, I'm talking about geopolitically, the Chinese government is on the opposite side of whatever than the U.S. Okay, they are considered an economic and geopolitical rival. All right, the same as Russia, North Korea, everyone else. When something comes out of there, especially out of a town where a lab is, you have to assume it's weaponized. Probably not. You hope it's not. You prove that it isn't. But you have to treat it as such until you know differently. So that's what we're going with. If I had to write a book about this and I wanted a real conspiracy theory, I would have a terrorist group that developed this virus or just got a hold of the regular virus and let it loose near the lab so that no one would know what the hell is going on. Everyone would freak out and shut the economies down. And that would be a great weapon of terror that would get the same result that we have. And you don't even have to have a weapon. You just have to create the doubt, the fear that it might be a weapon. So ISIS or any terrorist group that would have taken a bat infected with the coronavirus and released it into a market near a lab that's possibly working on this stuff for either medicine or weapons, man, that would be genius. It was so simple, it would be genius. To whoever writes that book, send me a check. So that's where I'm at on that. Guys, it's an hour. I try to keep these live sessions that short. So I appreciate you guys checking this out. Please make sure you go visit all of our friends in town, shop local. But also, look, do me a favor. Go to YouTube. You have a Gmail account. You should have you have a YouTube account. Go to YouTube. Go to the Roadway Podcast YouTube channel. Check out those. I got a few videos up. Check them out. Subscribe. Leave a like. Hit some comments, man. Help me get the YouTube channel off. Also, I'm on TikTok now. You guys can check that out. I'll start doing some uploading. I'll put segments of the podcast or the live episodes on TikTok, so you can follow me there, and obviously here on Facebook. Make sure you, if you want to, share this. Try to get people to look for this on the Roadway podcast page and not on my personal page. Get everything switched over. So appreciate you guys. Keep thinking, using your heads, question everything, stay rogue, and we will see you guys next time.